Hello and welcome back to the Amped EV podcast. My name is David. I am the editor for The Buzz, and today we are talking about a topic that we don't really get to talk about very often because there aren't many people doing it. We're talking about breaking Guinness World Records. Today we have a several-time Guinness World Record breaker on the show that we will be talking to. He's broken all kinds of records in all kinds of vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles, as well as electric vehicles. So today, our guest is Rainer Zietlow. He is a several-time Guinness World Record driver. He also owns a company based in Germany called Challenge 4. Let's get to the interview. Rainer, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. I'm really, really excited to talk to you today with this conversation. Can you help us understand what was your motivation to begin breaking world records in the first place?
And it starts quite a long time ago, 20 years already. And in 2004, I decided to get my company Challenge 4 started in Germany. And I was always checking out before what is the height, the altitude a car could go most extreme to the height. And almost 10 years before I had this Challenge 4 being started, I said, hey, we should get that world record. And when I was successfully get that world record, that was for me the signal and the start point to do all the other world records with my agency Challenge 4. But let me tell you one more thing. When I got my driving license when I was 18 in 1988, so quite a long time ago, I drove 6 weeks through the Sahara Desert, just with a driving license I got some days ago with my friend. And at that Sahara, when we drove and only sand and only wind and the sun and the stars at night, that makes something with you when you cross the Sahara. And I'm pretty sure that when I returned from the Sahara in 1988, I had that fever for long distance driving, for extreme driving. And then in 1990, I crossed the African continent. In 1996, I made a world around tour. So I had lots of experience before I've done my Guinness World Records agency started. And actually, I've never done anything else in my whole life, of course, besides school and college, since driving with partners, with sponsors, and with for world records or extreme driving.
So you begin. Most people when they get their driver's license, they're afraid to get onto the freeway, but you decide that you're going to start in the Sahara Desert. So, I mean, how do you even come up with the idea that this is something that this would be a good idea?
That is a very good question, because one of my friends, his dad, sold cars from Europe and Africa. So in 1988, there was no political problems on Algeria or in Niger or Nigeria. So you can, as a tourist, just take your car, buy it here. It was mainly Peugeot, it was Mercedes, it was Talbot, as a Citroën, and these cars. And I remembered that in the south part of Algeria, in Tamanrasset, which is the biggest town there, so it's like Tuareg town. We've been about 500 Europeans with all type of cars sleeping there for crossing then into the real desert, into Niger. That was really like a 400-kilometer long stretch with no signs, with no anything support. Some people really get stuck in the sand. Some even also dried by not getting water enough and so on. But so it was really an adventure. And that stopped in the 90s when it comes to the borders being closed and all that. So it was coincidence that my friend asked me that his father is doing a tour through the Sahara, and I said, hey, let me buy a car and I join you. That was like I'd come to that 1988 tour.
And what kind of car was that distance, that journey? What kind of car were you driving?
A Mercedes 200E, Mercedes 200E. Age 1982.
Wow. So, of course, you have all these different Guinness World Records to your name. Do any of them come to mind as one that you just didn't know if you were going to make it during that journey?
I mean, I just told you the first world record in 2005, when I really had no clue how Guinness works, when I had no clue how it looks at that mountain, was the high altitude world record with the Touareg to 6,081 meters, almost 20,000 feet, at a mountain no one ever drove that height before. Uh, until today, if you type in that mountain called Ojos del Salado in Chile, you will see lots of improvements of my world record. And this mountain is quite famous for high altitude world records, but I really was the first one. And that was the record I was saying, oh, well, let's see what comes out. But I start professionalism then really fast after that high altitude world record. And I never had this feeling when I started that I don't know what comes up next. There was one project which was quite different to all the other projects, 2013, when we crossed Russia up to the Bering Strait, when you see Alaska, the complete Russian continent, on tires. No one has done that before. And that was for the Sochi Winter Games in Russia. So this was also an expedition. I hoped in the beginning it will end up safe, but it was fine. But beside the 2005 one, where I was really like a rookie, no one, don't know so much what's going on. And the 2013 Russia project, all projects I've done, was quite clear that I'm good prepared.
That's incredible. So, of course, we're on an EV focused podcast here. So, I knew this entire conversation would be fascinating. But in particular, I want to talk about your EV world records.
Yeah.
Can you give us a rundown as far as what you've been able to accomplish in an electric vehicle?
Yeah, interesting is that since 2020, you cannot ask anyone from the media related person at car industries about combustion engine projects. They will only accept EV projects. So the change was around 2019, 2020, because my last combustion engine project was in 2018. Then comes COVID, and COVID was really that break when you let's say in 20 years from now, and you look to the past. COVID was enormous also for the EV business, because for my business with EVs, because from there on, no other projects have been taking place with combustion engines for me. So let me just tell you, I have done 2 Guinness World Record projects now with EV cars. I drove in 2020 through Germany 28,000 kilometers. And I drove in 2021 60,000 kilometers through the United States by visiting all 615 US dealers. And that's still the world record for the longest distance being driven in one country with an EV car, as a Guinness World Record. And last year in 2020, I took an ID4 from VW, and I drove to 20,000 feet in Bolivia.
Wow.
And right now, I just came from Alaska. This was also a world record, but not a Guinness World Record. We've been the first with an EV car driving from the most northern point to the most southern point of the U.S. highway system, Dead Horse, Alaska, to Key West in Florida in wintertime.
Oh, man. Yeah. Winter adds a whole nother element to this. Yeah. And, that kind of leads to my next question. How are you deciding what world records you are going to go for, and what is your kind of confidence level going into them?
When I decide for a world record, mainly I try to keep a car as a standard car, not modifying car, because people would like to see this car Rainer is doing, I can buy at the dealer. That's one of the first things I would like to do. And then I check, of course, what people would like to see: coldness, high altitude, long driving or range, infrastructure. I'm not so much a guy like an influencer, a YouTuber who explains about the car, how it really drives. I really would like to show by pictures and movies and videos how the car looks like in that environment, and what kind of problems we run into. But I'm not so like 15, 20 minutes standing in front of the car and explain all the techniques of the car. Mainly, I'm trying to use the car, take the car to the environment, which is quite hard, and show how the car is performing there.
Sure. When we're talking about driving a long distance in an electric vehicle, of course, one of the first things that comes to mind is range. Electric vehicles are kind of known in a way for the driver having range anxiety while driving them. So, with that being said, how was the charging for you driving across the country? Did you find here in North America, did you find the charging infrastructure adequate for what you needed, or did you run into a lot of issues there?
We should be clear when we talk about North America. Is it now USA or is it USA and Canada? When you just want to know USA, then what you would like to know, the continent or the country?
Honestly, both. What was kind of what was the difference between Canada's infrastructure and the US's?
Let's say start with USA first. Interesting is that in Fargo, the movie Fargo, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Wyoming, we had no chargers during our 2021 World Record Drive. No fast chargers. Of course, they are 20 kilowatt chargers, but not the high power chargers. But they changed this since 2021 and 2023. That 2 years was enough time now for making the US almost everywhere you can drive without having any problems. So when we drove the World Record Drive in 2021, we had issues in Wyoming, North and South Dakota, and especially around Fargo. I remembered because of the movie, So, but now I heard and I checked also Electrify America, but also Tesla. I know that these states are getting high power chargers. And America, as a USA, is really good for long distance driving now. There shouldn't be a big problem for you to go almost everywhere. And I heard also a little about Texas, South Texas, but I'm sure that this year and mainly next year, America would look good for going almost in every corner you want to go with electric car. Canada, of course, is different because most people from the 30 million people live on the south, close to the US border. And there is only the Alaska Highway, which I drove. And the Alaska Highway, and that's interesting, we've been the first, and it's by coincidence more or less, that the Alaska Highway is now closed in the north part, in Yukon, with 22 kilowatt chargers. So we've been the first charging in Yukon with our car. And Canada is coming up also very quick now. And I'm doing another project. This might be one of your questions. What is your next project? So I'm preparing a project for Canada right now. Canada is coming very fast on ID4. Same actually in the world, Australia, Europe, Canada, USA. They all go for the infrastructure because they see now that the cars are coming. The cars are really coming.
Got it. Charging infrastructure seemed to work okay for you, but what about the extreme environments of somewhere like Alaska? What were some of the things that you had to take the ID4 through in order to accomplish your goal?
Now coming to, I just explained you the easy areas of North American continent and even the south part, Bolivia and Chile and Argentina. I also checked during my 2022 world record. So coming to Alaska, Alaska is actually not a state, it's a country. It's super big. It's bigger than Texas. So Alaska actually is divided in two parts, the south part until Fairbanks and the north part until Dead Horse and Prudhoe Bay. All the electric vehicles, and there are some in Alaska, going up to Fairbanks. And there is an infrastructure. And the infrastructure is quite okay compared to the big size of the country. So you can go from Anchorage to Fairbanks and down to Tok and so on with an electric car. That is not so bad a problem. The problem in Alaska starts when you go further north, but there's no reason to go further north when no one is living. Only this whole road, the Dalton Highway, which I took for going to the Dead Horse, is been existing. And, it makes for an EV driver normally no sense to go this road. In winter, especially not. In summer, okay. But I heard about Alaska now. They get funding from Washington, from the capital, about building up a battery infrastructure also for the north part. They have some $1 million now for investing for infrastructure. So Alaska will lose his frontier or pioneers feeling for infrastructure EV cars very, very, very quick. And let me tell you something about Bolivia or South America, where there's really no infrastructure. So we had a mobile charger system in our car, which can be hooked up to 380 volt, 60 hertz
Mm.
a plug. And with this power coming from the plug, we could charge our car. So
Got it.
in many countries, especially on the southern hemisphere, beside Australia, of course, and South Africa and New Zealand, there are still big gaps of chargers for EV cars. And for example, Brasilia, one of the biggest countries in the world, they are going for ethanol. That's very interesting. They go for alcohol.
Mm. Hmm.
Electric for them is okay, but only in the big cities, Sao Paulo, Rio. But in the far out, they use ethanol out of sugarcane.
Got it. Got
Even
it.
America, even US is big on E85, but in Brazil they have E100, for example,
Oh,
100% pure alcohol.
wow. What
Yeah.
would you say, given all of your experience breaking these records in crazy conditions in an electric vehicle? Obviously, you've
Mhm.
had a lot of experience driving those vehicles and kind of seeing what they're really good at and what they're not so good at. What is a lesson that you've learned based on your experience that you think might not be well known that you want to share with other EV drivers surrounding the capabilities of an electric vehicle?
Yeah, the probably most important factor to tell about is uh, the EV car is coming, and there's no way back to combustion engines. But, and this is a big but now, and that I saw, when we focus now on America, I mean, you are an American-based company, so let's focus on America, not so much about other countries in the world. But let's say about America, there are many regions, and for example, we talk about Texas, we talk about Alaska, where might be the conversion time takes more longer for EV cars than in other states at the coast. And this comes to the problem for EV cars, if you ask me. Of course, the range and the
Mm.
charging time. It's quite a hard thing for Americans who don't want to wait. I mean, me as a German, we're also quite fast, but Americans as a service people, as a service country, and people expecting good service and especially fast service, charging at an electric charger, high charge, even at a fast charger means at least 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes.
Mm.
And that when you drive long distance, let's say from New York to Los Angeles or from Kansas to New York, you have always to calculate the time for charging on top for the driving time. And this is really for the Americans quite a big issue. I wouldn't say the problem, as we in Germany, we have no no speed limits on Autobahn. For us, it's a big problem because you cannot drive fast on EV cars. But in America,
Mm.
if you stay like on 65, 70 miles, the range distance is okay. I mean, you
Mm.
have to do a break for food or for the toilet. But when you arrive then for charging, it takes at least 30 minutes. So just this is probably the biggest point the automakers, the car makers should work on.
Mm.
And there are, of course, new batteries coming for the next years where the time will be much, much shorter. And for example, NIO from China works on a system to change the battery. I think the last word
Mm.
has not been spoken on this system as well.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I've heard a lot about that too, and I'm really interested to see kind of how that
Yeah.
evolves and how that might change the game for people.
I would like to add something because of this reason that people in America have to wait 30 minutes for charging, you have specific type of characters waiting at the charging stations.
Ah,
You don't have a range of the whole American society waiting at these chargers. There are specific people, and these people mainly are behind electric vehicles. Mainly think about what they are driving, think about the
mhm.
costs, think about environment. So when you stop at this 30 minutes at the electrified charger, you will see most of the same type of people all over America, all over USA.
Interesting. I hadn't
Yeah,
really thought about that point, and it's a very, very
yeah,
good point.
yeah.
So kind of going to my next question there,
Yeah.
are you driving a stock ID4 to
Yeah.
accomplish your goals here, or are you kind of swapping out components and doing different things to maybe enhance the vehicle to help you reach your goal?
No, I'm using standard ID4s on two reasons. First reason, I would like to tell the people, hey, you can buy that car Rainer Zietlow is doing a Guinness World Record with, or world record. And second, modifying ID4s, or sorry, modifying electric vehicles is not easy. Modifying, I mean, from the chassis, more or less okay. But when it comes to the electricity, when it comes mainly for the software, it's a big, big thing, even for the car manufacturer. And I remembered conversations with people, engineers from these car manufacturers, that they sometimes say to me, Rainer, we even don't know ourselves. So it's a big thing, even for them who produce the car, the new technology, to understand fully into the deep thing inside. And this is one of the reasons I'm not like to modify or to change anything on battery, on the software, and even on the electric engines. Suspension and chassis is clear you can, but when it comes more to the electric, and also the high voltage, you should not forget it's dangerous. Going to that big battery, it's not easy.
Were there any components of the vehicle itself that you just feel for a journey like this just cannot be compromised?
I mean, the big high voltage battery, that's the big thing on the project. For example, when Rivian crossed America on the Trans-American Highway, Trans-American pass, it's like an off-road pass. For them, it's really like the range. How far we can go from one charger to another. Have we stock in the prairie somewhere, or can we charge? So when you do world records like me, always check, is the range okay, and if the temperature is okay. And that comes to that point. I would like to tell you what happened to my car at 37 minus Fahrenheit in Alaska.
Oh no.
37 minus Fahrenheit in Alaska. And this is the story. It won't take any energy. You cannot charge the car at all. You can plug it in, but the car won't take it. The car, and this is, I didn't know that before. I mean, I know it, but and I planned it. I'm sorry to say, but it's different when you then do it. And I can tell you, that when I charged it, and there was no indication of how it charged the car, it was hard for me in Alaska. And let me tell you, at this point, when we drove at 37 minus, there's also many people will ask me, hey, Rainer, how the tires performing? I mean, EV tires is one big subject also for the range. You can imagine that people would like to go as long as they can, and some tire manufacturer, like for example Hankook, they have a specially made EV tire now, which give you a little more. I mean, it's not really big. That's clear. It cannot be 100 miles more, but there are some miles you get out of these EV tires. And I had this a nice opportunity to use now in specially made winter EV tires for Alaska. Give me that necessary range to go through these roadhouses, because in Alaska there are some people living roadhouses for trucks, and they give you this power you need to drive up to Alaska. So not only electric vehicles, not only chargers, also the suppliers for the electric vehicles and mainly tire manufacturers are performing here very well to give the people a longer range and a better feeling of driving EV cars.
Sure. I think it's so interesting, the point you made about tires, that, we've seen these EV kind of specific tires coming out of the marketplace. Yeah. Now we're starting to see almost the next evolution of that, where yes, they're tires that are designed for EVs, but they have a more specialized purpose. So maybe they're designed for winter driving or high performance, something like that.
And that's also interesting, sound. Mm-hmm. And this is something, if you've never driven EV cars and you don't feel the vibration, you don't hear the engine at the traffic light, this is very, very interesting point. The silence of the car, of the EV car. And then when you have tires, and I saw these, and here are Hankook tires with me, the Evo electric series for EV cars made tires, and they have a swarm material inside the battery, inside the tires. It feels like when you go into the kitchen, for the water to take off, This is the same material, and it really is super quiet. There's no
Oh,
wind sound.
got it.
It's like if you have a super sound system in your car, it's like almost sitting in your living room. When you
Oh,
drive
yeah.
an EV car and you have these tires on, it's like wow, you hear every single noise or voice from everywhere.
So on that note, last question for you. Do you have a
Yeah.
soundtrack that you like to listen to, a specific genre as you're completing your goals here?
Do you mean I have a specific band or a specific type of music, or?
Yeah, yeah. What do you like to listen to while you're breaking records?
The interesting thing is, I don't like to hear too much music because I have to stay focused on the project. Even
Mm,
when it's a long distance driving, there are lots of things we have to check. Also with the partners, and I work with my cameraman very close together to get good pictures and
sure,
good
sure.
videos during the tour. But when it comes to music, I'm a bigger fan to more relaxed music from the 60s, 70s, I would say 60s, and the new stuff, which called easy listening or something like that. So
Sure.
it's not too rocky. It's not too rocky. It's not too hard.
Yeah.
Soft tires,
Yeah, you
soft
exactly.
anything. It makes you easy listening. It's like an elevator. Like standing
Yeah, I
in an
mean,
elevator.
this isn't a sprint, you're not going for something hardcore. You want it to be nice and easy and level. I understand. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time today. This was incredibly enlightening for me. Such a great conversation. I hope we have an opportunity down the road to talk again because this was just fantastic.
It was a pleasure for me as well, and I hope I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for inviting me for the call. Thank you.
Likewise, thank you. Take care. Okay, so I don't know about you. I learned a ton from that conversation. One of my main takeaways being charging infrastructure in America. Yes, it's difficult. It's difficult in a lot of states. It's hard to own an EV in some of those states like the Dakotas. However, it's getting better. To his point, every year infrastructure is improving across the nation. It just keeps getting better and better, and it's really opening up doors to people who are interested in these vehicles. I was also fascinated by his time in Alaska, talking about I think he said negative 37 degrees, where he's trying to charge the vehicle. It won't charge. What do you do in that situation? Just all kinds of interesting insights from somebody who's really pushing the limits of electric vehicles. I was absolutely sincere when I said that I hope we have an opportunity to talk to him again down the road. I think that would be another fascinating conversation because I could dive into this topic all day and all night. I hope you join us when that conversation comes back around. We'll catch you next time.